Hey, welcome in.
Welcome to the Arrowhead Addict podcast.
We are here coming to you live.
The Kansas City Chiefs are going to the Super Bowl. You only win a Super Bowl 2 times every 5 years, right? Oh! The warm-up act is over. Let's bring in Melissa Etheridge, massive Chiefs fan. Melissa,
Super Bowl champion, two-time Pro Bowler, and Trent Green. Trent Green, how you doing?
Hey, what's going on, guys?
And he picked it up! He picked it up! He's gonna score! And we'll see you next week. But until then, as always, go Chiefs. Welcome in. It's the Arrowhead Addict podcast, Thursday edition. Patrick Allen here with my pal from Sports Illustrated, Matt Verserame. We're going to preview Chiefs versus Chargers and get into some of the moves the Chiefs made this week. Verserame, what's old is new. The Chiefs are bringing back everybody. They're calling up Neil Smith, Kimball Anders. Who's coming back next?
Yeah, they apparently saw that Mecole Hardman also was not getting on the field ever with the Jets and said, "What the hell? We'll swap 6th and 7th round picks in 2025 and make the move." Look, Hardman, if nothing else, he's an upgrade over what has been on the field. I don't think it's a seismic, oh my goodness moment, but it's better than what Sky Moore and Kadarius Toney have been doing. I mean, Hardman pretty much was guaranteed like 600 yards a year or so when he was in Kansas City. That's a lot better than what we've seen out of a lot of the receivers so far.
Yeah, we're going to get into it. We're going to break it all down in just a minute. Before we do, though, I got to let you know that we have got a deal running with DraftKings. DraftKings is got this new promotion. New users can place a $5 first bet to instantly claim $200 in bonus bets. You will be rewarded with a separate, no-sweat single-game parlay every single day when you opt in. All you need to do is use our code Arrowhead. Using our code Arrowhead not only gets you these great bonuses, but it also directly supports our podcast. You guys have been great about this. If you've been considering signing up for DraftKings, make sure to use our code Arrowhead to maximize your first bets and parlays. There's a game tonight. Get in on it. This offer is only available to new customers who are 21 and older and physically present in a legal gambling state. Please remember to always gamble responsibly. Check out the episode description for the full terms to see if you qualify. Let's break this down, Verserame. So obviously, Mecole Hardman's back. They're bringing Frank Clark back as well. He was released by the Broncos. But let's start with Hardman. Now, as you already pointed out, he's in the past. I saw somebody tweet this, and I can't recall exactly who it was, but he's outside of Travis Kelce, instantly the most accomplished receiver on the Chiefs.
Yeah, he pretty much is. I mean, MVS. You could argue, I guess, would be there too, but yeah, I mean, like the Chiefs right now, it's a whole bunch of guys at receiver. I mean, they're just trying to figure it out. Now, Rashee Rice is stepping to the fore here. I think it's pretty obvious he's going to be a pretty big piece of this team. I was talking with somebody about a week ago with the team. It was like, look, this kid, he's got to get on the field. I mean, it's evident. They know that we need to see a lot more Rashee Rice. Everybody else, though, I mean, what is there to say that hasn't been said already? Kadarius Toney's not done anything. Sky Moore's not done anything. MVS, I keep thinking, is going to do something. His track record says he will, but his stats say he won't. Justin Watson's now down for probably what's going to be a couple of weeks. Richie James is on IR. So, yeah, I mean, look, say whatever you want about Mecole Hardman. And over the years, I've probably said plenty, and it probably averages out to, he's fine. Well, fine right now is a hell of a lot better than what they've been trotting out on a lot of downs at receiver. So for what they paid, yeah, sure. Why not?
Yeah. What do you say to fans who are frustrated and say, hey, we could have just re-signed him. Now we give up a draft pick for him.
I would say that they can move back in the 5th round, like 5 spots next year and recoup the draft pick. I mean, I wouldn't worry. First of all, they moved back. They didn't even give up a pick. And I know there's the whole like, well, it's probably a 5th round compensatory pick. Like, look, man, if they want to recoup that, they can move back a handful of spots and do it. Like, they don't care. I mean, I can tell you right now, they view that 5th round pick, even though it's compensatory, they view that as a 6th round pick.
Right.
Because it gets moved back so many times over by all the spots that are filled up by prior compensatory picks. I'm not saying that it doesn't matter, because the Chiefs have found some really good players in the 5th and 6th and 7th rounds. I'm not saying it doesn't matter. What I'm saying is they can recoup it fairly easily. I don't think it's some huge deal. They could even make a move at the deadline like they did last year, where they traded Fenton. And, it was like a 7th round pick, right? Like, they could do something like that. So I don't care necessarily. Like, look, they let Hardman go because they felt like they had better options. It turns out they don't. I don't give the Chiefs any bit of a hard time for being like, all right, look, let's rectify the wrong. Okay, cool. Fine by me. I mean, would you rather they just sat there and did nothing? I mean, looking at the situation, I would tell you that I would not expect them to do much else at this point. Like, I think this is probably where they're at. They don't want to give up more draft picks, I wouldn't think. And you look at their cap sheet, like, they're kind of what they are. I mean, I don't know that they're all of a sudden going to make another big move. I think this might be the move, and if it's not huge, it's at least something. It's an improvement.
Yeah, I think a lot of fans were disappointed because I think, people were throwing around names. Hey, we need help at receiver. Let's go get Hollywood Brown. You mentioned the guy from Chicago,
Darnell
Mooney.
Mooney.
Yeah, as a potential option. And then it's Mecole Hardman, who I think a lot of Chiefs fans, I think they got frustrated with him last year because he was dealing with the injury. I think some Chiefs fans forgot during that time that, like, he's quite a weapon with the ball in his hands, and they would get him the ball and he would make things happen. He was a Pro Bowler as a returner, all these things. Like, if you were going to draft him like next year, even knowing how his NFL career has turned out, he's probably going in like the 4th round, right? Like, he's
yes. Oh, yeah.
He's
yeah,
not
absolutely.
going in this.
Yes.
What they gave up for him, it makes sense.
I just listen again. Like, what did the Chiefs even give up here? I mean, I'm sorry. Sometimes we really just, like, we dig for stuff that doesn't exist. Like, who cares? In 2 years, they swapped 6th and 7th round picks. I mean, all right. And by the way, the Chiefs' 6th round pick might be pretty damn close to the Jets' 7th round pick, depending on what the Jets look like in 2024. Like, I don't know. What'd you give up? 10 to 15 spots in pick, 220? I don't care. I can't get that worked up about it. Like, I don't think it's that big of a deal. I really don't.
And they gave up quite a bit to get Kadarius Toney last year. Now, he was coming off an injury.
Yes.
He worked his way in and then helped them win the Super Bowl. So even just throwing Hardman back there as a returner, I kind of liked Washington. I thought he was
He did
doing
a nice job.
But I think probably what the Chiefs know is that Mecole Hardman gives them a lot more than just that. And so that's why they made the move that they did. Hopefully Washington lands on the practice squad, can hang around. But it's a move. We'll see how it works out. They need depth. As you mentioned, they got injuries, they got banged up, and maybe he gets a little something going. But did you hear anything about why it didn't work out for him in New York? Like, he couldn't even get on the field?
It just never came together. I mean, I couldn't give you an exact detail, but other than just listen, the Jets had some other guys that they felt more confident with. I mean, like, look at Lazard and Cobb and Garrett Wilson. I mean, 2 of those 3 guys are from Green Bay, right? So they were Rodgers' guys. And then you have Garrett Wilson, who's obviously the number 1 there. I'm surprised Hardman didn't get more run, but you take a risk sometimes when you go to a new place and you're fighting for, 4th billing. You might get lost in the shuffle a little bit. I don't think Mecole Hardman is a great player, but I think he's a useful player. And for the Chiefs, he's going to be very useful because they need him. Like, they need somebody right now who Mahomes trusts and can get the ball to. And look, there were times when Hardman was on the Chiefs where his route running, you'd look at him and go, come on, you got to sharpen that route here or there a little bit more. And all that, I think, is still true. At the same point, if you are Kansas City, let's just be clear. Let's be honest about this. He's right now, he's an upgrade. I mean, he's not great, but he's an upgrade over some of these other guys that you're trotting out there down in and down out. So you got better, and that's really what you need right now.
Yeah, they want depth, they want options, and look, I'm glad Mecole Hardman's is back because I have an axe to grind with Mecole Hardman. So I'm speaking directly to him. Mecole Hardman, and when we were at the Super Bowl last year, you know what it's like there on media night and opening night, and everyone's at their podiums. And of course, you can't get anywhere near Mahomes, Kelsey, Andy Reid. There's a million media members there. Sometimes, when we're there, we're doing those things. You go and you get some of the other guys that maybe go talk to Creed Humphrey. You don't get as much competition. Well, I decided, all right, I'm going to pick one of the big three for the Chiefs. I'm going to try to get a question to Big Red, Andy Reid. I'm waiting there forever at the end of the night. Media members getting their questions in, moving out of the way. I'm moving up. I get all the way up there. It's his last question, and I'm about to ask my question, and somebody puts their hands on my shoulders from behind me. It's Mecole Hardman, and he yells out, "Hey, Coach Reid, I have a question for you." And so I moved out of the way, and I let Mecole go up. He asked Andy his question, great question, but then that was it. So that was my chance, and Mecole Hardman robbed it of me.
It's the way it goes. And now there's time for retribution. You have to find them and have that conversation.
Yeah, I hope I hope we're both back at the Super Bowl this year, and I'll let him know that he needs to sit this one out and let me get my question in. All right, let's talk about the Frank Clark stuff. Now, this, as far as I know, has not been confirmed yet. Carrington Harrison, he reported that Frank Clark was coming today, I think, to take a physical for the Chiefs. Frank tweeted about it. Said, I land tomorrow, I think he said yesterday. What are you hearing? Is this happening? Is this for real?
I did my due diligence on it yesterday. My understanding of it was that there wasn't anything imminent. That essentially, look, I don't think there's any secret here. Frank Clark wants to be on the Chiefs. And I don't think the Chiefs are against that necessarily. I think the Chiefs are very open to the idea of Frank Clark being on the team. But my understanding was that it was not something that was just guaranteed to happen this week. Doesn't mean it couldn't, but was not just a formality. So Frank Clark, very well, I'm sure is in Kansas City. Might even be at the facility. I don't know that means all of a sudden he's just going to be on the team and wearing a red 55 jersey tomorrow. I will say that if the Chiefs want Frank Clark back, I think it's pretty much a foregone conclusion he's going to be back. I think that's safe. But they just added Amenahu back on the active roster. They want to get more snaps for FAU. They have Karlaftis. They have Dana. They have a lot of guys to roll in here. So I don't think that there's necessarily a rush with Frank Clark as there was with Hardman, where they need the help desperately at receiver.
Yeah. And it's, look, I like the move if they can bring him in, but I think to your point, they don't have to do that right now necessarily. And I think he was dealing with a little bit of an injury there in Denver. So maybe they want to get him in, take a look at him, see where he's at. And maybe they say to him, hey, Frank, if you're willing, hang tight. We got a couple other things to figure out. Because as you just mentioned, with Amenahu coming back and now the Mecole Hardman trade, they just had to cut two guys.
Right.
So there's a lot of roster gymnastics going on here.
I think, you have to factor all of it in. That they have a lot of guys in this defense that can play ball, and that includes DNs. They really like FAU. I know he has half a sack. Karlaftis last year had half a sack through 10 games. And then all of a sudden it was just bang. He was sacking guys left and right. Karlaftis also was in a spot where he was going to play a lot more snaps in FAU. Okay. At this point, I think DK Uzama is going to be a backup on this team. He just is. Amenahu will play outside and also reduce down inside. Dana can do the same thing. They have Karlaftis, who's playing pretty much every down. They got a lot of guys. Jones runs as a D end on third down. They have a lot of guys. The Chiefs are just so flush at that position. I mean, I almost think if they bring in Clark, frankly, it's more of a, hey, great to have you. Team loves you, and the team does love him. Make no mistake. Like, I think it'd almost be more of like a glue guy, a character guy, and a guy who like, hey, Frank, in January, remember how you turned into Lawrence Taylor this time of year? Go nuts.
Right.
I mean, I think it'd be more that than it would be like, hey, he's going to get 40% of the snaps now. I don't think that's going to happen just based on how the rest of the team's playing.
I agree with you on that. I think you want to continue to develop your young pass rushers, and
And he can help with
alone,
that.
right?
But I think that would be more the reason. Like, it makes Chris Jones happy. You could develop FAU. Like, you have him in the playoffs. You have depth. I think he'd almost be. Remember how when the Chiefs won the first Super Bowl of this era, they brought in Terrell Suggs? I almost think it'd be more like that, where it's like, hey, man, you're going to play. Like, you're not going to just be sitting there watching, but you're more of like, bring you in when we need you. And you're going to make a big play here and there, but like, we need you to be in the room and like help these young guys along. And, people forget now because they've won so much. Like, at the time, part of the reason they brought Suggs in was because you knew how to win a Super Bowl. Like, part of the reason was that experience. So I think it's more about that than anything else right now.
Yeah. And look, Frank Clark just about 10 months ago was all up in Joe Burrow's face in the AFC Championship game. Yes. So having that guy to call off the bench, and now he's a guy that you can keep him on the shelf, have him play a handful of snaps during the season, have him work with FAU. He helped Carl Loftus last year in training camp, stayed after, was a mentor to him. I think those are your benefits. You're getting a coach on the field, a locker room guy, another vocal leader in the defense. He doesn't need to be taking a bunch of snaps away from young guys, but when somebody has a long drive and guys get winded, you can tag him in, and he's got the moves to play a couple snaps a game.
Yeah. I mean, look, I think he could be very valuable in that regard. I don't think all of a sudden, they just need Frank Clark. They have to have Frank Clark. This defense has been unbelievable, but it doesn't hurt to have a guy like that in the room. There's no question.
Yeah, absolutely. We got a great super chat from our guy D. Cali. People hating on Hardman because he's the face of the risky situation Chiefs wide receivers is in. Not fair, but he's going to face some negativity. Yeah, look, like if he, I feel bad for him because if he comes in and he like drops the first pass Mahomes throws to him, I don't know.
He'll fit right in.
Yeah, right.
I mean, maybe he's just trying to fit in with the rest of the group.
They'll lose their minds. So. Hey, look, it'll be interesting to see. Brett Veach likes to make some moves at the trade deadline. This team's pretty good. He's made some splashy moves before, but it doesn't necessarily mean he will this year. I think it's more for this team about just developing what they have, both on offense and defense, than making some sort of big risky move.
I don't think they can make a big risk. First of all, I don't think the guy's out there. Who are they going to get? And it's like a big name. I mean, again, we've talked about Hollywood Brown and Darnell Mooney, and that's all fine and what. But who's the big name? Who's the guy who, like, that guy's going to change the offense? The guy doesn't exist. That guy does not.
The only guy that I would be interested in, I think, is Adam Thielen. And I don't know that Carolina is going to want to trade him because they got a young quarterback back there, and he's throwing him the ball like crazy, and they're looking for wide receiver help, but. Somebody hit me up with kind of a crackpot idea that I don't think would happen, but they were like, well, what if the Chiefs are just done with Sky Moore and they want to go in on Rashee Rice and they want to get him out there? Would they trade Sky Moore? Let me ask you this though. Would you trade Sky Moore to the Panthers for like a 5th round pick or a 4th round pick in Adam Thielen?
I'd have to look at the numbers, mathematically, like in terms of the cap. I do it in a heartbeat. I mean, if the Panthers would do that, I'd be screaming deal into the phone before they could even. I'd call into the league office simultaneously. That's somebody on the next line over. Like if the Chiefs could get any value for Sky Moore, I would personally trade him. I just don't see anything that tells me that he's just going to all of a sudden start playing good football. I don't, and I'm sorry. I know there are Chiefs fans who are like, well. You got to give him more time. Look, fine. You want to take that route? That's fine. I'm not saying you can't take that route. My route is I've seen enough of Sky Moore to just feel like he's not good. I mean, Rashee Rice has been in the NFL for like a half an hour, and you can just tell that kid is good. I don't need to see that kid can play ball, And the more he gets used to like learning how to sit down in certain zones and then learning how to use leverage and getting in on the same page with Mahomes, I can see Rashee Rice being a guy who has 1,000 yards many times over in his career. He is a really, really good player. Sky Moore has been in the league a year and a half, and I can think of one game, that Chargers game, ironically, in LA when they were down a bunch of guys were like he stepped up. Otherwise, you don't even see Sky Moore. Like, and by the way, I'm not just going to pick on him. Kadarius Toney's been every bit as bad. What has Kadarius Toney done all year long? You know, I mean, look, my old man has a saying: potential's a fancy word for saying you've never done anything. I mean, at some point, like Sky Moore and Kadarius Toney and all these guys got all the potential in the world. Who cares? You know, if you're good, you don't have potential. You're just good. Like at some point, it's got to turn into something. But yeah, I think, look, if you look at the Chiefs cap situation too, they're just not in a position to go out and go get somebody. They're not. Like they're carrying a lot of big numbers. I think they're probably at where they're at. And that doesn't mean if something falls into their lap that makes sense, they would turn their nose up at it. But I think it would take that. I don't think they're going to go out and make a whole bunch of moves. I just don't see it happening.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Well, we'll see what happens. We got a few weeks to go here, or a couple weeks. All right. Let's get to this game that we got coming up. Chiefs and the Chargers. This is a big game. It shouldn't be that big of a game right now at this point in the season. It's not even Halloween yet, but for the Chargers, it kind of feels like do or die. Some quick notes for you. Chiefs are at home in this one. They're 5.5 point favorites. The over under is 48. Chargers are 2-3. They beat the Vikings and the Raiders, and they lost to the Dolphins, the Titans, and the Cowboys. Had a lot of close losses, 3 points, I think 2 points. Going into this game, Chiefs are giving up 15 points. That's rounding up a game on defense. The Chargers are giving up 25. Does a win in this game where the Chargers are coming in 2-3 after losing to the Cowboys, the Chiefs are 5-1. If the Chiefs win, is that pretty much a wrap for the AFC West?
Yes. I'll go out on a limb. It's already a wrap. If Mahomes is upright for the rest of the season, it's already over. It's done. I mean, the Chargers aren't catching them. And if the Chiefs win this game, yeah, the Chiefs should just right after the fourth quarter ends, should just hold the ceremony at the 50-yard line and just start raising up another banner because nobody's catching them. I know the Raiders, technically, they're 2 back. No chance. So, yeah. I mean, look, this is a game for the Chargers. Not only are you trying to keep yourself alive theoretically in the division, like you lose this game, you're 2-4. I'm not saying you can't make the playoffs, but like as Yogi Berra would say, it's getting late early. I mean, it's, you know, because look, the Chargers still have to play Chiefs again. Still have to play Buffalo. They still have another Baltimore. I knew there's another like Baltimore's a game that's not going to be easy for them. The Jets, like they should win that game, but they're at the Jets. Who knows? Like I can see them losing to the Jets the way they're playing. So like the Chargers schedule is not exactly easy. It's not overly difficult, but it's not easy. Like I definitely could make a case here where the Chargers, you go, yeah, man, you lose this game. It's bad news. It's bad news. They also got to play Detroit. I didn't mention them. You got to play the Lions. Like, I just look at the Chargers, and for years it's always been, well, they're really talented, but X, Y, and Z, right? Like something always happens. Injuries, coaching, whatever. I got to tell you, man, I don't think they're that talented. Like, Mike Williams is out for the year. Corey Linsley, they're all pro centers out right now on IR. Okay. They traded away J.C. Jackson. They're not that talented. They have good edge rushers. They have Derwin James. So I got to tell you, Derwin James on tape this year has not been the same Derwin James has been in past years. And offensively, it is essentially Keenan Allen. And if you stop Keenan Allen, good night. Like they're not. I've watched every snap of the Chargers this year, and I'm not saying they're bad, but they're not the team they were like when things were good, they're really clicking. I just don't see it, man. They're just not that talented this season.
They're the Sky Moore of the AFC West.
I've heard worse comparisons. Yeah.
You know, somebody in the chat said, Alan said Chargers equal potential. Still haven't done anything. Same thing can be said for Justin Herbert. And I saw you having this discussion on Twitter. And
Always
I thought it was really
time.
interesting. Yeah. You know, and I thought you made a really good point. You said, you asked when, like, and you and I have been going back on this podcast. We've been fans of Justin Herbert since right when he first started. You pointed out, like, when was Justin Herbert's signature moment? And I started thinking about it. And the only thing I can think of watching him is that game against the Raiders that they ended up losing.
They lost.
Well, yeah, but he was incredible, and he was getting hit, and he kept getting up, the fourth down and converting, and they lost the game, and that's really it for the Chargers and Herbert.
Their best. I went back and looked after I tweeted that out. Their best win with Herbert was against the Chiefs in Arrowhead in Week 3 in 2021 when the Chiefs got off that 3-4 start.
Yeah,
and in that game, the Chiefs had 4 turnovers and lost by 1 score. And some Chiefs fans might remember that game, although I don't subscribe to this, but some Chiefs fans might remember that game as that play with the Hail Mary. Like, there was massive interference in the end zone, didn't get called. You go back and look. Okay, that is, to me, undeniably the best one he's ever had. The Chargers won 30-24. Herbert threw for 281 and 4 touchdowns. He had a very nice day. The Chiefs in that game, I'll never forget this game because I remember being like, how could they have lost? The Chiefs had 33 first downs in that game, well over 400 yards, 437. The Chiefs had 4 turnovers to 0 in the game. Clyde Edwards-Helaire rushed for 100 yards, and they lost because they had the 4 turnovers. You might remember that as that game where Marcus Kemp, the ball like hit him in like the side of the helmet and it popped up in the air. I mean, that's the best win he's ever had. They lost the division by 3 games that year, and that's the best win. So, like, yeah, man, I look at the Chargers and it's like, yeah, look, you have some talent. I don't think you have as much as you used to. And by the way, also, that's the last time the Chargers have beaten the Chiefs. Like, it's the only time Herbert's ever beaten them. Yeah, I don't know. Like, I get it. They have some guys on that team. There's certainly guys you respect. I just don't feel like this is the same team it once was, where you looked at them and went, wow, they got a lot of guys. Some of it because of injury, like Williams and Lindsley. But some of it's just James hasn't played as well as he normally has. Bosa hasn't played as well as he normally has this year. Drew Tranquil, he's on the Chiefs now. Like, all those things, it adds up over the years. And, I think that's kind of where we're at now.
Yeah, our guy Jason Reed here at Fanside covers the Chargers. Was on the podcast last night with Adam and Sterling, and they were talking to him about the defense, and they said, hey, why is this Chargers defense so bad? And Jason, I thought, made an interesting point. He said, because they were like, you got some guys on this defense, and he's like, yeah, we've got some guys, but it's really top heavy, and after some of those bigger names, they don't have a lot of depth.
Right.
And if you look at the Chiefs, that's the complete opposite.
Correct.
Of defense. They got depth. They got guys. I mean, they're a really truly good team. So when you look at this matchup for the Chiefs against this Chargers defense that's dead last in the league and offensive yards allowed, even worse than Denver.
Yes.
Not offensive yards, passing yards.
Yes.
They cannot stop the pass. Is this a game? We thought this was going to be the case last week with Denver, and the Chiefs struggled in the red zone. They did move the ball. Yeah. Is this a game where the Chiefs offense really gets going against this Chargers defense?
It could. I will tell you one thing in this game is going to be very interesting. If the Chargers, to me, this game comes down to one thing, other than the obvious, the turnovers and stuff like that. If the Chargers don't get home, this game's over. Because their secondary, they have to play zone because outside of Asante Samuel Jr., the corners just can't cover anybody. And if they have to play zone, the Chiefs will, if Mahomes has time, that's a death match. Like, even with the current issues the Chiefs have, they will light that up. The other side of it is when they go into man coverage, like the corner, they cannot hold up. Now, the Chiefs receivers got to prove they can beat somebody in man coverage. But Kelsey has killed them in recent years. Killed them. So I would think that there's another big game to be had there. Look, I went back and I pulled up the box score of the last game that they played against them, which was in LA last year. Chiefs had that comeback win late. And I pulled it up because I thought it was interesting. That was a day they had no Juju Smith-Schuster, no Mecole Hardman, and no Kadarius Toney. they were down their top 3 receivers. So it's kind of a similar thing where you look at it and go, okay, maybe it's a little bit instructive. Kelsey had 6 catches for 115 yards and 3 touchdowns. Justin Watson had 3 and 67. Sky Moore, the best game of his career, 5 and 63. MVS had 1 and 18 on 4 targets. Noah Gray had 2 and 15. They threw for 329 yards. Okay, now, what was more interesting to me, they ran for 163 yards on 6 yards per carry, and Pacheco in particular went nuts. He had 15 carries for $107. So I wonder in this game if this is one of the games where, you remember, I just said in that Herbert game that they won, Allaire ran for 100 yards. Pacheco ran for over 100 yards last year. I wonder if the Chiefs are going to run the ball at the Chargers in this game again. And so you can't stop it. Because the one thing with the Chargers, not only their secondary is struggling right now, their linebackers are not good. Like Eric Kendricks and Kenneth Murray are not good. And if I'm the Chiefs, I am just relentlessly going after the second level of that defense in both phases, run and pass. To your point about them giving up the most passing yards, which is true, I always look at yards per play. I think it's a really instructive stat. The Chargers are tied for 29th in yards per play against. They're tied with the Bears, 5.8. Okay, in case you're wondering, the Chiefs are tied for 5th in the league. Net yards per pass attempt against. The Chargers are 29th. Kansas City is 4th. If the Chiefs want to run the ball, the Chargers are better. They're literally middle of the road, 16th in the league. Chiefs are actually tied for 23rd. But the point of all this is, look, if you're the Chiefs, there's a lot of ways to go after them. And this is a defense that, look, they do blitz a decent amount. They're right in the middle of the league, a little above average, 26.8%. They're not, however, though, while they do blitz, they don't get a ton of pressure. They're in like the mid-20s in pressure rate. So they don't do a whole lot well here defensively. The Chiefs should have avenues to attack them.
What's really interesting to me about this game on the defensive side of the ball for the Chiefs, this is an explosive offense. They like to push the ball downfield. They've put up a lot of points. They've been without Austin Eckler. He came back last week and he made kind of one nice catch out of the backfield for them and then was pretty much neutralized. Yep. But he's working his way back in. He's a great player. Keenan Allen's been having one of his best years ever. He's just been a target machine. But as you mentioned, they lost Mike Williams. And in the past, Spagnuolo's done a good – he's always gone after Keenan Allen. Take Keenan Allen away. And the flip side of that has been Mike Williams has just eaten the Chiefs alive in these games.
He's killed them.
Just killed them. So frustrating. Well, he's gone. So if you're the Chiefs, how are you feeling about this game as you go into it on defense? How worried are you about Eckler coming out of the backfield and Keenan Allen?
I got to be honest with you. If I'm the Chiefs, man, I feel great about this game defensively. Like, great about it. So, Austin Eckler, terrific player. He's only played in 2 games this year. He got hurt in week 1. Okay. Last year against Kansas City, he rushed 14 times for 39 yards, and he had 9 catches, but for only 55 yards. And then in the second game, he ran 19 times for 83 yards and a touchdown. Better game, although they did a better job in coverage, only 2 catches, 17 yards. All right. Like, they actually did a pretty good job. Like, I think you take either one of those lines and be pretty happy with it. The year prior to that, again, he didn't do much, man. He had 59 yards rushing, 23 yards receiving, 55 yards rushing, and 52 yards receiving. So, like, usually has like 1 touchdown, decent game. If you're the Chiefs and you hold him to that, you're thrilled to death. Like, honest to God, you're thrilled to death over it. If all told, he has 100 yards, unless Allen goes completely out of his mind, the Chiefs should win the game. Because, quite honestly, this is the best, I think, that the Chiefs match up against the Chargers in a long time. It's always been that the Chiefs have been better than the Chargers, but the Chiefs have these weird matchup issues with them. McDuffie and Snead, either one of them could guard Allen. Allen is unique in the sense he can play outside, he can play in the slot. Well, guess what? So can both those corners. Like, the Chiefs can match up with them. And Gay and Tranquil can match up with Eckler. I just don't like, if you're the Chiefs, now you're not just going to sit and man every play. They mix in a lot of zone. And, look, when you have zone, you can kind of make some stuff happen. I just don't see any reason to think, like, let me put it this way. I know that the Chargers are obviously better than Denver. Like, they're clearly better than Denver. Are the Chargers, offensively speaking, at the skill positions more talented than Denver?
I'd say it's even.
Right.
Right
Like, it's
now.
not, I agree. Like, it's not big. Now, Herbert is much better than Russell Wilson, of course. So they are a better offensive team. I'm not trying to make the argument they're not a better offensive team. But my point is, this is not the Chargers of years past. You're like, all right, it's Williams and it's Allen and it's Eckler and it's, whoever else, Hunter Henry at times. And, maybe there's nobody. I mean, everybody thought Quentin Johnston was going to be a really big piece of the offense. I mean, he was a first round pick out of TCU. And I'm not kicking dirt on the kid or anything like that. But to this point, he has done nothing. He has been an absolute nothing burger for them on the offensive side of the ball. In the entire season to this point, he has 6 catches for 44 yards. Yeah. So, listen, I mean, the Chiefs, to me, this whole game plan has to be about you take Allen away, specifically on third down, and with Eckler, you just limit him, especially in the passing game. Like, I don't even think they care that much how much he runs for. It's just limiting him in the passing game, not letting him go off for 12 receptions and 100 yards.
And the Chargers have not been good running the football this year outside of Eckler. When he was out, Joshua Kelly stepped in for him. He had 58 carries for 209 yards, 3.6 yard average. Not good. So they've got nothing behind Eckler in the running game. And so they're just going to keep throwing. And you're right. After Keenan Allen, Mike Williams, he's been out the last 2 games. He's still their second leading receiver.
Yeah, they have nobody else. Joshua Palmer's not putting the fear of God in anybody. So, yeah, it's rough.
This is a game where you can double Keenan Allen, and you can follow Eckler around and keep an eye on him and play man with other guys if you want.
If the Chiefs don't double Keenan Allen on every big down, it's malpractice. It is malpractice. I mean, there is just absolutely no reason to have any fear of anybody else in this team catching the ball. Nobody. I mean, Joshua Palmer has 220 yards receiving. Gerald Everett has 123 yards. And after that, nobody else has more than 85. Like, look, you have no fear of anybody on this team. And I'll tell you the truth, man. Eckler has 155-yard run this year. Now, granted, it's 2 games. It's a really small sample size. I understand that. He has 155-yard run. If you remove that 55-yard run, he has 89 yards on 29 carries. That is 3 yards in the 10th. Like, they're not good. They're not good on offense. They're really not. Like, Allen is the main guy. And after that, it's And as far as even Herbert, Herbert's been excellent in completing passes and everything else. He's got a good TD to INT ratio and doesn't take a ton of sacks. That's all fine. But, they're not a team you're looking at and you're like, oh, my goodness, what do you do with this team? I mean, it's just not – it's stop Keenan Allen. And if you do that on most big downs, he's going to throw the ball to Allen. We didn't even talk about the targets. Allen has 55 targets. If you take Mike Williams out of the equation, at 26 before he got hurt, the next 3 guys, the highest totals on the team, have 58 combined. He's going to Keenan Allen. Any big down, he's going to Keenan Allen. You have to be aware of that, and you've got to find a way to shut it down.
Yeah, and you want to double him because he's their explosion. He's got 10 receptions of 20 yards or more on the season. So you just can't let that happen. If you can take that away, I like your chances if you're the Chiefs, especially the way that this defense has been playing. Okay, which players who are the guys on offense and defense that you think need to step up for the Chiefs to win this game?
On offense, it's the tackles. If they block, I honestly think they're going to win the game. I said at the beginning, listen, if they block on the edges, I think Mahomes will be able to slice him and dice him pretty good. It's quite honestly, like he did against Denver. The problem was he got in the red zone, they just fell apart. But I mean, Mahomes was 30 of 40 for over 300 yards in that game. I think Mahomes could have another big day. Now, defensively, I think it's McDuffie and Snead, whoever's on Allen. I mean, I think that's the game. If you stop Allen to any extent, they can't score them. They can't score. They have no offense. Keenan Allen's the entire offense right now for them. I respect Eckler, but even if Eckler goes for 80 rushing yards and 40 receiving yards, who cares? they're not going to win the game if he's got 120 yards and Keenan Allen has 70. They're done. They're not going to win that football game unless the Chiefs just gift wrap it to him. I mean, so I think for me, it's got to be 2 tackles on offense. And then defensively, listen, you've got to be able to say, all right, he is not going to torch us. Might have some catches, fine. Can't torch you. The Chiefs have shut down Justin Jefferson this year. There's no reason they can't do the same thing now.
I'm with you. For me, I think it's I'm going to say the linebackers. I'm going to say Willie Gay Jr., Nick Bolton, Drew Tranquil, who gets him running this game, because I'm with you on Keenan Allen, and I think the only way the Chargers can make hay in this game is if they can really get Eckler going and they can extend some drives with him, because Keenan Allen might get a shot here or there, but I think the Chiefs will do a good job of taking him away. And so the only other hope they have is Eckler just keeps helping them get first downs, moving the chains, making plays. And if those linebackers are instinctual, like they have been all year, and take him away, this could be a game where the Chargers struggle to score, to be perfectly honest with you.
I do not think the Chargers are cracking 20 points in this game. I don't. I really don't see it happening. The Chiefs have played far better offenses this year and shut them down. Jacksonville is a far more dynamic offense than the Chargers. It's not even close. The Lions are a top 5 offensive team. They get 14 points. They didn't have Chris Jones in that game. Like, Minnesota has far more weapons than the Chargers. They had 13 points before they scored to make it a 1-score game with like 4 minutes left. I think the Chiefs are very well positioned to not just win the game, but quite honestly, really put it to them in this game. Like, I just don't like. I have always the last couple of years looked at the Chiefs and the Chargers, and they've played each other, and I've always said the Chargers just match up well with the Chiefs. They give them problems. It's always been that way. I don't feel that's true anymore. I always felt like the Chiefs would beat them, but I always thought it would be a dogfight, and it has been. They've always been close games. I forget who put this out on Twitter. Somebody doing something about betting, but the Chargers have never been down at halftime to the Chiefs since Herbert's been the quarterback. Like, it's always been tight. But I really I look at this game. I don't see it. I don't, unless it's just one of these deals with the jailbreak and Mahomes is running for his life. I don't even really worry about the Chiefs defensively. Like, defensively, this team, I think they've shown you more than enough. Like, they can play. Yeah. It's all about handling the edges with Bosa and Mac. And by the way, Morgan Fox should be mentioned. He has 5 sacks for Chargers this year. But if you handle them up front, you even play into a draw up front, I think this game could be won rather handily.
Yeah, it's very possible. On offense, I think for me, the player that needs to step up is Patrick Mahomes. And the reason is I think they're going to move the football like they did last week. He needs to make sure they score touchdowns in the red zone.
Sure.
He's struggled a little bit this year. It's been fine. They're still a top 10 offense, but that's how you let a team like this hang around, is by kicking field goals. So he needs to get down there. Kelsey always eats the Chargers alive.
He does.
I expect that to be the case this week, but we will see. All right, we're going to give you our final score predictions in just a minute. Before that, really quickly, we're going to do AFC contenders or pretenders. This week got an interesting one for you, Verserame. The Cincinnati Bengals, contenders or pretenders?
That's a really hard one because it depends on how healthy is Joe Burrow. I broke this out on the MMQB podcast, which after you watch this, you should go check out Gilberto Manzano and I on that. I looked it up that Burrow ranks 33rd of 33 qualifying quarterbacks in the stat of intended air yards per attempt, which I know sounds convoluted. When you really think about it, it's just like how far is he throwing the ball on a down-to-down basis in the air. Ranks 33rd of 33. By the way, shockingly, Mahomes ranks 31st. Okay. Now, but here's what's interesting. In on-target percentage, just, hey, man, I'm going to hit you in the chest with the ball. Mahomes is second in the NFL. Only Dak is like 0.2% better. Burrow is 26th. So Burrow's not only throwing the ball really short, he's inaccurate as hell right now. I have watched every down of the Bengals this year, every single play. That offense is brutal to watch. It is brutal. Like, think about the year the Chiefs didn't have a receiver score a touchdown. It's like that, except without Jamal Charles. I mean, it is just gain of 4, gain of 6, gain of 9, gain of 3, gain of 2, gain of 1, punt, gain of 5, gain of 5. I mean, it is just so limited. If he's limited to what he's been, they have no chance. They don't even sniff the playoffs because they're coming out of the bye. They have bye this week. Then they play the Niners and the Bills.
Yeah.
No shot in hell. Like, if Burrow's playing like this, they have absolutely no chance. If Burrow gets right, I think they make the playoffs, and then they're dangerous as hell because they're a very good football team. And Adam Romo's an excellent defensive coordinator, and offensively, they'll figure it out. So I guess I'd say contender from the standpoint. I can't rule them out. But if Burrow's going to play anywhere like this, forget it. They won't even make the playoffs.
Yeah, I think there's a good chance that they're hovering around 500 towards the end of the season, which could be really interesting. Because you're right, if they lose to San Francisco and they lose to Buffalo,
Dire straits.
then they play the Texans. Texans are plucky, man.
Yeah, they're not a pushover. They could win.
They
could win. Yep.
They got to play Baltimore
In Baltimore
on the road.
Yep.
Game they could
Gotta
lose.
play Jacksonville.
Then they go to they got Jacksonville. Yeah, so I mean, it's not, and then right there at the end of the season, like the final boss, they have the Chiefs, and then they play the Browns,
who own them, who beat them every time they play them.
They've over the years, even when the Browns weren't good, these last few years, they've beaten them, and they wiped that Browns defense.
No, they're no joke.
No joke. I mean, it's incredible. They've actually given up a few more points than the Chiefs. But they're holding up against, like, they haven't had a quarterback for 2 weeks.
No.
They can't move the ball. And they're giving up, like, something crazy, like under 200 yards a game.
They've given up the fewest yards. I think ESPN had the stat, I think. They've given up the fewest yards through 5 games because they've had a bye. Through 5 games since 1971. I mean, it's nuts. Look, I will say this for the Bengals, though. Like, it's time. Like, you're coming out of the bye week, like, you got to get rolled. Now, the good news is for them is the division, the drawing game back, but they also lost at home to Baltimore. They got to get cracking. I'll paint you a scenario. It'd be really interesting. Let's say the Chiefs keep rolling. And come week 17, they are already to a point where they've, like, wrapped up the 1 seed. And the Bengals come into Arrowhead, and let's say they have 2 games left. Let's say they're 8-7. And they're fighting for a playoff berth. You will never in your life see a more motivated team that has nothing to play for than the Chiefs on that Sunday. I mean, that game is going to – and the crazy thing, if that scenario plays out, is like the Bengals obviously would have everything to play for. Kansas City would both have the intensity of a playoff game and the freedom of, like, who the hell cares? Let's do everything. That would be a fascinating game to watch. Like, if you're the Chiefs, you just flea flicker on the first play. What the hell? Whale it. Right? Like, doesn't hurt. I would be very curious to see if the Chiefs have everything wrapped up and the Bengals are playing for their lives, what that game looks like on New Year's Eve.
Yeah. It's going to be really interesting to see how that. I mean, we were sitting here talking in preseason that, hey, that game's probably for the number 1 seed. Good chance it's for the number 1 seed. It's a really important football game, and that's probably not going to be the case now.
No, I don't think
not for the Bengals anyway. But it might be for the Chiefs if they can keep winning. So it's going to be fascinating. All right, so time to put up or shut up. Let's get our final score predictions in for Chiefs, Bengals. You are the guest, Verserame, so you get to go first.
I mean, I think we should probably do Chiefs Chargers, not Chiefs Bengals.
Oh, I said Bengals.
We could. It's way out there. But
yeah, let's a big forecast. They're playing the Chargers this week. Who you got?
I'm taking Kansas City. I think Kansas City's going to handle them in this game. I really do. 27-17, and I don't even think it feels that close. Like, I think it's one of those games where the Chiefs kneel down at, like, the 5-yard line and could have easily doubled them up. I just don't. I don't believe. And I'm going to tell you right now. Again, 27-17 is my pick. I would not be shocked in this game if the Chiefs absolutely blow them out this thing. I could see this being like 34-13. I really could. I wonder if Staley, like, if that whole thing is just a powder keg at this point. But because it's a division game, I think it's close for a while, and then the Chiefs kind of just pull away and pull away and pull away. Give me 27-17.
I hope you're right, because it'll be a much less stressful afternoon for me. I've got this one as another dogfight. And I think the reason why, one, obviously the Chargers always play the Chiefs tough. They just always give them problems. And the Chiefs haven't quite been right on offense. And until I see it, I'm gonna assume that, I thought they'd blow up Denver's defense is so bad. And again, we already mentioned
terrible.
that it was the red zone. I mean, they could have won that game by 3 touchdowns if they just scored when they were supposed to. So maybe hopefully that doesn't happen in this game. I've got it Chiefs 24, Chargers 23.
Wow.
And another heart attack game with those guys, because that just seems to be how they go. And the Chiefs don't often get the blowouts that we think they should, even when they're playing inferior teams. Of course, they did against Chicago. But I hope I'm wrong on this one, and I hope you're right, and the Chiefs score 30.
It's funny, though. Like, I agree for the most part with you, but then I'm like, they didn't blow Jacksonville out, but they beat them by 8, and they were kneeling at the 1-yard line. Like, they handled them. Like, the Broncos, it wasn't pretty. They killed the Broncos. I mean, I was at that game. I can't express to you the absolute full level of confidence in the entire section that I was sitting in. Not one Chiefs fan was like, oh, God, like everybody was like, to their credit, there were 3 guys behind this who were cool as hell. They were Broncos fans. They're actually very self-deprecating. They're funny. At no point in time was anybody like, oh, I don't know what's going to happen here. Like, the game was just done. Like, the second Butker hit that 60-yard field goal, you're like, yeah, this game's over. So, I mean, I think the Chiefs do have this weird thing about, like, well, they don't blow teams out. Like, they I went back and looked last year. They blew 7 teams out. Now, granted, not you, like the Chargers, they don't blow them out. Those games are always tight. I just really feel like, I don't know, man. Like, unless Keenan Allen goes crazy, who's beating them? Who's doing it? And I got to tell you, the way the Chiefs are playing on defense, good luck. Have fun. Like, I just don't. I don't know. My confidence is born out of the defense more than it is anything else.
Yeah. And, somebody pointed out in the chat there that the Chiefs are basically coming off a mini bye, and the Chargers were on Monday Night Football. So, they're coming off a short week. Or was it Monday or was it Sunday?
They played Monday night?
It was Monday night.
Monday night?
Yeah. So they're coming off a short week. One of the reasons I picked it close to was because I do think this is it for them. So, like, if you're Staley, your job's on the line at this point. Your life's flashing before your eyes. So you're probably emptying out the playbook, going for broke, going for it on every 4th down. It may not matter, and with the Chiefs rested and Andy extra time to prepare and all that. And let's hope not. But we'll see. This is probably it for Staley. And he loses this game, I don't. You don't think he'd get fired midseason?
No, I don't think there's any way hell the Chargers are paying a couple of guys. So no, I think he's going to be there. But I got to tell you, man, did you watch some of that game?
I did.
Okay.
Yeah.
That game was a clinic in like the 2 coaches just going, you think you're going to screw this game worse than I am? The hell you are. I'm going to make a bigger mistake. I'll run 12 guys out on the field. Well, I'll go for it on 4th and inches and run a rollout and throw to Joshua Palmer. Like, it was like, oh my God. Those 2 teams in that game, it was just, how can we screw this up worse than you're screwing this up? It was almost like they met at the 50 before the game, said, look, it'd be fun. Let's make the worst decisions possible and just see how it plays out. And they just topped each other one after the next. I mean, that game, I don't know, man. That's another thing. Like, everybody was going nuts about Kellen Moore this offseason. How's that going? I mean, I got to tell you, they look like the exact same Chargers. Not a whole lot of difference.
Yeah, and the Cowboys and Dak almost had Michael Gallup on a couple of deep balls.
Right through his hands.
Yeah, the Chiefs can take advantage of that. All right, before we get out of here, Patty's power rankings. It's Halloween season, my favorite time of the year, and I thought it would be fun. And let us know in the chat if you're watching on YouTube. By the way, hit that like button. And let us know who you rank. Who are your top 3 scariest Chiefs? And I don't mean scary like, Derek Thomas scary. I mean scary like, oh God, they're putting that guy in the game. Get him off the field. I'm terrified. Who are the top 3 boogeymen for you in Chiefs history?
It's a place I don't like to go to.
It's a dark
Yeah.
place. There's a lot of people.
I was going to say there's so many people there.
In the closet.
I hate doing this because I feel like he's a nice guy, but it just has to be Eric Warfield. When I was a kid, just drove me out of my mind. Just, and he was like kind of like the poster boy for me of like those awful defenses. So maybe a little unfair to Eric Warfield. Eric Warfield's got to be up there. Sabby Piscatelli, I think earned his spot in Chiefs hell in a very short period of time, but he deserves mention. And then I'm going to go third place. I got a tie. And I knew somebody was going to say Lynn Elliott in the chat. I'm not going to go there because he's a kicker. I'm just going to go offense, defense. Third place is a tie for me. The Jordan Black, Damian McIntosh experience to tackle. I mean, Jordan Black, there was a game, for some fans will remember, they played a playoff game. It had to have like 6 things go right for them to make the playoffs in 2006, and they got in. They played in Indianapolis. Jordan Black was chiefly responsible for handling Dwight Freeney. It's one of the most unbelievable teaching tapes on how not to play offensive line you'll ever see in your life. I mean, just torched every single play over and over and over. So those 2 guys, I still wake up in a cold sweat thinking that they might have to block from Mahomes one day.
Yeah, that's a good one. And that you actually one of the guys on my list is Damian McIntosh, who of course we lovingly refer to on the site as Damian Sackintosh. Just that guy. Not good. It was bad. It was bad times. Number 2 for me is another tackle, Donald Stevenson.
Oh, I forgot about that. He's fighting his coach on the sideline. Yeah, good time.
Oh, my God. Terrible.
God, they suck. They suck. So any Chiefs fan who went through all that crap and is enjoying it now, I don't want to hear from one person on Twitter and like, oh, you're so lucky. Yeah, you lived through Brody Croyle, buddy. You enjoy that.
We're getting some good ones in the chat. Greg Hill, Orlando Scandrick, Brody Croyle.
Orlando Scandrick, another classic, yeah.
Thomas Jones. Yeah, but Thomas Jones towards the end was bad, but he was scary just because you knew that he was keeping Jamal Charles on the sideline, and you were like, but yeah, 2021 Dan Sorensen. Number 1 for me, Frankie Hammond Jr., man. That guy.
You know how I feel about him, so.
Every punt. He was. It was. When I think about Chiefs player and scared, like me being scared that they're on the field. Anytime the ball was in the air, I was just like, just let it bounce. I don't care if it rolls to the 1 yard line. Don't try to catch it. He was terrible. Honorable mention to Sammy Parker, who couldn't catch a cold.
You know what was amazing though about Sammy Parker? Sammy Parker, if the ball was thrown at him and he was wide open, no chance. If Sammy Parker was diving out of bounds, just gold right in the hands. Yeah. Like, just, there's a lot of guys. Like, shout out to Stanford Route, who they signed, and the man did make it out of preseason. God, there's so many, man. Like, Brody Croyle, I didn't even mention. He was in the chat, like, definitely. I love that somebody put Bob Sutton in there. That's hilarious.
Sutton, I was thinking about using Bob.
Mike Vrabel, the corpse of Mike Vrabel at that point in time. But yeah, man,
Mr. Intangibles.
Yeah, he was clearly there just for that. But like, they have so many. Like Mike Goff, who came over for the Chargers, who was a guard. Oh, he was terrible.
Oh God, yeah. Remember when the Chiefs got like the whole Dolphins cast off offensive line?
Dude, they suck, man. They suck. Some people are saying Neiman. Yeah, Neiman belongs, and he belongs there. But dude, there are so many guys over the course of time. Like, even like when I was in the 90s when they were good, they would have guys you're like, oh my God, like how is this guy in the field? Like mostly the quarterback, Steve Bono, but like, they would just have guys who you're like, I don't understand how this guy's on an NFL roster. And he'd play for them for like 5 years. Snoop Minnis.
Snoop.
Right.
Bad.
Oh,
Demarcus Robinson. Jesus says Demarcus Robinson running with the ball one-handed.
Yeah.
The loaf of bread guys.
I always LaShawn McCoy. I always appreciated that Demarcus Robinson. Look, nobody in NFL history has ever had more first downs lost by running backwards.
Yeah.
Man's got to have 50 of them. which is,
Yeah.
hey, it's 3rd and 11. DeMarcus runs like a 14-yard route, and it ends up being 4th and 7. Like, what?
Yeah.
My God, just fall over. But no, man, there have been so many guys over the years that you're like, this guy just can't, like, he can't play like at all. And the Chiefs were just, hey, you know what, Ryan Sims, another year. Sure, what the hell? Go for it. Like, just brutal.
Kendrell Bell, they brought him in.
Big money signing.
Yeah. Was.
Dude, they had that one off season. They signed like him, Dexter McLeon, and Vonnie Holiday.
Yeah.
And Carl was like, it's fixed. Fixed it. And they were the worst defense in the league. Oh, they were brutal. They were the only saving grace of those defenses for some of those. Jared Allen and Jerome Woods was like pretty good safety. And the rest of that team, woof. Oh my God. Somebody said Phillip Gaines. Yes, that is yes. That is a good one. Yes.
Yeah. And so many we could spend the rest of October naming that. It is kind of it's like exercising your demons.
It is. It's like a
somebody said William Barty. Oh. Jesus criminy. William Barty, Tank and Turk on the D line. Yeah, that didn't work out. Carl would just he was like in the graveyard digging up corpses, getting guys from the 60s, 70s.
He just had an unbelievable ability to bring in the most random guy who was the worst player you've ever seen. You'd be like, well, let's just bring in this guy off the waiver wire. And you'd be like, all right, he's not going to be good, but what? And then you'd be like, oh my God, he's the worst player I've ever seen in that position. Like how? I remember the Kansas City Star. They used to grade, they still do it, but they used to grade like every position group and every player at the end of the season. And Jason Whitlock, who used to work there, who, listen, I mean, it is what it is, but at the time he was there. Yeah. He gave Frankie Hammond Jr. like an F-. And I was like, you know what? Jason Whitlock and I don't always see eye to eye on things, but I'm on board with the F-. Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, we got a couple of Marcus Coopers, Jackie Battle. I like Jackie Battle. He gets you 3 yards.
Marcus Cooper was so disappointing because he was so good at the beginning of his career. Like,
yeah,
he was incredible. And then it just immediately just went to crap. But yeah, I'll give. Oh, who's the? Oh, God, I just thought of another safety. I can like picture him. Oh God, I can't remember. Quentin Demps.
Oh, yeah.
Him and Kendrick Lewis. Good times.
Yeah,
good times.
Okay.
Yeah.
I thought Kendrick Lewis was the answer there for a minute.
He was good for like an hour, and just terrible.
Yeah. All right, everybody. We got to get out of here. Big game on Sunday. We will see you back here on the Arrowhead Addict YouTube channel for Chiefs Chargers. Well, the pregame show, halftime show, and of course, we'll be here after the game. And the Chiefs have, we can raise that AFC West banner, hopefully. Yeah. Thank you to Matt Verserame from Sports Illustrated for joining us. Make sure you head on over to si.com. Check out all of his work over there. Thank you to producer Richard for getting us on an early start today. And we will see you guys on Sunday. But until then, as always, go Chiefs.